You know, we had a lot of things going our way. Nathan and the boys were running through the mountains at 10,000, 11,000 feet up in the Rocky Mountains, having a blast. Everything was going our way. And then my wife noticed a little bit of a cough and then just some shortness of breath when he would come up the stairs. And she requested an appointment. And they did some checking on him. And then on physical exam, they found a large lymph node. I knew that a lymph node in that place was very ominous. And so they ended up ordering a chest x-ray for him after talking with us. And by the time I got home from the chest x-ray, there was already a call from Mayo Clinic on the phone. And I just knew it was not good news. And he said, this is a very large mass, and we're going to be admitting him to the hospital. So on Wednesday, we had tissue confirmed diagnosis, stage 4 T-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The oncologist sat down with us and said, you know, we're going to take care of this. He's going to go to kindergarten. He's going to get married someday. So
he was in the hospital almost entirely from right after Thanksgiving through the end of April, with the exception of 2 weeks, maybe, at best.
Fast forward to January 7th, he had one more dose of consolidation therapy, and then they were going to give his bone marrow a break. You know, Becky just said, he just doesn't look right. She called the oncology office, and they said, you know what, just bring him into the ER and let's see where he's at. And he tested positive for RSV, or respiratory syncytial virus, and norovirus.
So for 2 weeks, he ran 104.5 fever and was profusely vomiting and having diarrhea endlessly. Couldn't keep anything down.
And then one night, they could not keep his oxygen sats up, and Becky and I were there, and I went around to the oncologist, the pulmonologist, the infectious disease doctor, and the ICU doc, and I just said, if this was your son, what would you do? And they were all answering, we would give him a break, meaning we would put him on mechanical ventilation, paralyze him, put him in a medical-induced coma, and breathe for him so that he wasn't so exhausted. As I'm having that discussion, Becky starts screaming from the room. And unfortunately, she said that he looked up at her, and the last words he said was, "Mom, will you snuggle me, or will you hold me?" And then he started getting hypoxic blue fast, and then it wasn't a choice anymore.
Nathan, Justin's here saying hi to you, and he got a lucky gold dollar from Emily at the smoothie shop. And he wants to give it to you because it's lucky.
His lungs still could not breathe, even with a ventilator. So eventually they moved him to an oscillator, which is, it looks like an archaic machine that's older than us. And it breathes 300 times a minute to keep the lungs inflated, since the vent and Nathan weren't able to do that by just normal paced breaths. So at 7 p.m., he had crashed twice that day and needed to be handbagged, let's say, basically breathed for him with a little a bag over his mouth. But he, at 7 p.m., crashed for the final time, and his oxygen saturations dropped into the 20s. And that's the time that they made the emergent decision to put him on ECMO as a last resort. From that point on, I think I walked into the room, and despite it having been explained to us several times, I was in utter shock to see my child laying in a bed with two very large tubes, blood going in and out, completely incapacitated. And that whole month that he was on ECMO was touch and go, touch and go, touch and go. There was no sleep.
He's on so much sedation, and they need to make sure that he's okay. To see if it's okay to continue this. And so they told me to come to the bedside, and that they were going to turn the sedation off. So if he didn't have any brain waves or wasn't intact, they wouldn't continue ECMO. So I'm standing there at the bedside and they say, okay, here we go. We need you to do something just to see if he's still there. And they said, they turned all the sedation off. I haven't talked to my son in a month. You know, I said, can you squeeze my hand? And the faintest little squeeze. And I'm telling you, that is, I will never, ever forget. I'm getting chills just talking about it right now, but I'll never forget that little faint squeeze. And then I thought,
he's alive.
Yeah. And then I thought, well, you know, it's kind of a primitive reflex. He's going to squeeze. So I said, buddy, can you squeeze my hand 2 times? And he gave it 2 squeezes. And it was just like, holy cow, he's still in there. And then they said, okay, that's proof of cognitive function. And then they quickly turned all the sedation back on. We have a huge care conference with the entire team, the ICU, the oncologist. And they looked at us and they said, well, we're to the point where we need to take him off. We were thinking that was a good thing, but the reasoning was that the mechanical ventilator, the use of that had popped holes in his lungs. And so he had what's called a pneumomediastinum, or a huge pocket of air in his chest. So
Free air.
Yeah, they could no longer push oxygen into his lungs. They needed his lungs to be able to breathe on their own so they could patch up. They turn it off. The first time they do it, just fails miserably. They just said, he's not ready. We'll try again tomorrow. And that I was really defeated there. That's where I thought things were not he wasn't going to make it. And they came in the next day and they backed the ventilator way off and they manipulated a few things on his trach. And then they said, he may make it 5 minutes, and he made it 3 or 4 hours. And it was like it was a miracle. He started.
Even the medical staff said, like, we've done everything that we know how to do, but there are some things beyond our explanation or science. Like all of his doctors agreed to that. You know, we didn't think this would happen.
And then he just started coming back faster and faster as he was able to sit up, and the sedation was off, and he was able to cough some of the stuff out of his lungs. And now he's high-fiving his brothers when they come visit. And Miraculous come back. Everyone's amazed. I remember the physicians walking in, and they had been taking care of him for months, and they would just shake their head in disbelief and then smile.
What does that spell?
Nathan.
Oh, good job.
We were sent home to follow up in 6 to 8 weeks for potentially asthma. And had we not refused to leave and demanded an x-ray just to rule out anything else, he probably wouldn't have made it. He would have passed into sleep. And I think advocacy is the most important. You are your child's only voice, and if you have that gut instinct it is given to you for a reason, follow it. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise, even physicians. You know, nobody's perfect. Nobody expects a child to have cancer when you take them in. And the other thing is, miracles do happen. Never give up. Never.